we didn't ask them to come down that road or anything, but when the shit hit the fan, we couldn't get them to fire illumination for us or any other goddamn thing, you know?
Yeah.
And they didn't want to believe that we were under attack by an armored force. And I'm sitting there watching 5 of these bitches come up the road at us. And there's 2 more over here and 4 of them over there, come to 11 of them and about 900 infantry.
Wow.
And they came to play, man. They came to goddamn play. We lasted 12 and a half hours.
Wow.
And I lay claim
Who's this
to being,
owner?
I lay claim to being the last man standing there. 1730, the last pickup ship took off, and I didn't make it.
Wow. Well,
And then I got
I'm-
captured there, and then about a week later, I met up with Brandy at some bamboo butthole collection point, and we split. And his legs were torn up. You wouldn't believe it. He had 50 some holes in them, and I carried him. We went for 7 days, no food, very little water. We made it back to Long Bay and got caught.
wow.
I was captured at Long Bay 4 times.
Wow.
Damn.
Wow.
Once at the old camp and 3 times at the main camp.
Okay. And what is your name?
Dennis Thompson.
You're Duffy?
No.
God bless
Dennis.
you, man.
Oh,
Dennis.
God bless you.
okay. I think the
Who's the
captain's name
owner over here?
when I was there
Down
was
here,
Duffy.
Say what?
I think the captain's the A-team captain when I
Captain's
was
name was
there
Duffy, yes.
named Duffy.
Yeah,
Frank Willoughby.
yeah, it was
Yeah, it was
Duffy.
John
Willoughby,
Duffy.
Willoughby and
No,
the
Willoughby
XO
was
was
your
Wilkins.
guy. Dennis.
But Colonel Shungle
Look,
was
who's
there,
down
too.
here with his owner? Who's this guy over here?
Who,
I'm
me?
over here.
Yes, you.
Steve Morris.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Yeah, you got the wrong name up there on my picture. You got John Robinson up there. John's dead.
Well,
Wait a
that's
minute.
a good sign.
Yeah. He's
You
dead.
know, when Brandy died,
You're Steve Morris, right? I got
Yeah,
wrong.
Steve Morris. Yeah. I was at Quezon and
You,
we're the ones that
I
don't
guess
Long
you was
Bay.
John Robbins.
when Brandy died,
Okay,
I
let
said,
me
geez, I better call
try
everybody.
that again.
I said, I better call everybody and let them know. But there ain't nobody to call. One guy,
Yeah.
McMurray, he was with the resident detachment there. He was with A101. And it's just him and me now. Yeah, shit.
Okay, so now I've got 2 Steve Morrises. Which
That's
one is
Steve
going to
Mor-
not be Steve Morris? All
That's
right.
Steve Morris, Morris.
Right. Well, I spelled you right. I've got 2 of you. Who's this guy down here?
Where?
Hey, down. Well, everybody's in a different position on your own screens.
Yeah.
The guy in the white chair. Hello, you in the white chair that I have misnamed, I guess.
Guy in the white shirt.
Yes.
Mike Brusco. Brusino.
Mike Brusino?
No, that's
No, you got me named right.
I got your name right, but the other
Yeah.
guy down here,
Yeah.
White hair, white shirt.
yeah, white,
Me.
white shirt, dark.
Me? My name is Paul Lowe.
I got you right. There's one more guy down here. It's not right. Okay, let me change him back to rename him as unknown.
Yeah, I got real busy working with JPAC for a number of years, and they finally took me over there with them. I've been back there twice to the place, and we're real proud of the fact that we buried Linda Wald and Hannah after 32 years.
Hmm.
And then we buried Holt after 47 years. And there's another guy, Moreland, our medic, we buried him after 43 years. So there's only one guy left out there, and that's Dan Phillips. He was the demo man at A101, and his cousin is that guy that wrote Night of the Silver Stars.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, shit.
Was that
I,
Charlie?
I'm gonna try one more time to figure out who unknown is.
That me?
If you're saying unknown on your pictures, that's you. Yes.
My name is Paul Lowe, L-O-W.
Oh, you're already
The
marked.
guy with the hat on?
Yes. Yeah, I hear Paul Lowe. You're in
Okay,
there
yeah.
already. The guy is listed as unknown. All right,
hey,
we'll just
you with the hat.
proceed on this. Look, I am recording right now. And while there'll be other people who pop in here, John, okay, now we know who you are. What I propose is we start back to the earliest people there, and then just sort of move chronologically through the history of this camp, which went from Quezon, where they took over from a TDY team and moved to Langvei, then to Hill 52, which I need to get some information on, and then to my lot. So as far as I know, Sam Austin and Church Hutton were there. Both of you were there at Quezon originally, weren't you?
No,
No, Sam, you were.
I came when I left Fubai, I came in through Quezon and went down to Long Bay, and I left through Quezon.
Okay.
I didn't really spend any time at Quezon.
Now
My name
you're
is
a
Ben
couple
Cox.
teams later.
I was with the original A101 and we arrived in April of 1965.
Right.
So I was the executive officer of A101, the first permanent party team at Quezon.
Were you
I
at
met you
were
when
you at
I was in, you were leaving. Team sergeant was Muddy Waters.
My team sergeant was Pete Morricon.
Right. Yeah. Pete came in and then Muddy replaced him. Yeah. I was on
Hey,
the second group.
were you at Long Bay when it was overrun the first time?
Yes.
Yeah, see, it didn't last very long. The new camp, I was with the Mike Force there, and it wasn't even finished.
We
They blew it
went
up.
Quezon to Long Bay and we established Long Bay. And they had in Quezonville, they had SCCN. And then we got hit with aircraft. We got everybody wants to say what they want to say, but those were MiG-21s. And they had a General McCowan that came up there to justify or to verify some of the ordnance that was left. And some of the ordnance didn't go off. And he admitted the fact that it was not US aircraft, but nobody else wanted to believe it. And they basically brushed it off.
Where was this?
All right,
Where,
let me hold on
'cause
here.
we had the Air Force
Let's
NECOM
come back to that.
drill camp.
Lewis,
Yes.
when you came in there, you replaced the TDY team from the first group. The Marines were just coming in country at that point. So they really hadn't taken over the base on.
That's correct.
was-
That's correct.
of your move, of your being there.
I didn't hear what you said.
You were there at Quezon,
Yes.
but there weren't any Marines at the time.
No, there were not.
And at what
We
point?
later in the year, we got a Force Recon Squad who came in and worked with us for a while.
Right.
But the Marines were just coming in down at Da Nang in that area
Yeah,
when we
Yeah.
got there.
What I saw there
Marine
with
Division.
the Marines is that they superimposed the Marines on top of everybody. And they're sitting on their asses up there at Quezon and made it a free fire zone. And we're out there running clandestine operations, and the aircraft would come over and say, I got movement here. And some PFC at the SITMAP says, well, they're not ours. Kaboom. You know, and Lowndes, that colonel up there, was oh man, he was too goddamn much. He took SOG and bumped them outside the perimeter, closed the wire behind them, and put a rifle company there. And when they had to put a Vietnamese presence there, they sent those Vietnamese Rangers up there. He did the same thing to them. Wouldn't give us the goddamn time of day.
That's right.
Shit.
Steve,
And that
if
was
you're
really
talking about,
sad.
if you're talking about FOB3,
Yeah.
that Marine company behind us shot us up one night. Next day, we were building bunkers and all the sandbags were going on our back of our fighting positions rather than on the front.
Yeah.
It was an
Well, the
exciting
Marines-
night. I was at
That's
the
part of,
northern end of
part of boot
FOB3 at the
camp.
time.
That's part of boot camp, you know, firing up the friendlies. They teach you.
Steve, yeah.
Steve Morris, getting back to what you were saying about the MiGs. The reason that Sam Austin was there was to rebuild the Brew village that had been hit by aircraft. Are you talking about two different episodes, or you just the same one?
No, I think it's two different episodes, Steve.
Sam and Steve Morris.
right. There's two different episodes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were the first episode, and then there was a second episode after us.
Well,
Yeah.
the people that napalmed
Second
the
episode was
village,
Navy pilots off the carrier.
the people that napalmed Do Long Bay were that was the Air Force done that one.
You know, and you guys talking about the Marines, you know, I spent my year, except for the time I spent at Long Vei with the Army, I spent my year with the Marines. I started out with the 4th Marines at Fubai, and the 3rd Mardiv came up to Fubai. And I tell you, you got to be a little bit crazy to be a Marine.
Yeah, they'll do anything you tell them. They'll do anything you tell them.
Got to be crazy to be SF. Marines are nuts.
Hey, amen.
Hey, Steve, may I suggest that because we've got a long period here, we had people at Quezon for right around 10 years. And each of us in this Zoom meeting here have different windows of experience in that. Why don't you start here by sort of going year by year in Quezon's experience? My understanding was that the French had placed people at Long Vei 40 years before we got there. But that American Army Special Ops actually built the airport and put the post in sometime around 1960 or 62. And I think it was George Korchak who was a part of that.
Colonel Korchak.
Yeah. So why don't we go back to the late 50s or early 60s and sort of start from the beginning. My experience at Quezon is from 1966 to 67. I'm the guy that moved the camp from Quezon to Long Vei, but I want to hear about the guys that came before me and then sequentially after me.
Yeah.
Okay, let me say this. As a prisoner,
I did not
as a
invite
prisoner
the
in
people who came here on
19
TDY teams because I've already done that. Lewis
As a-
starts with the PCS teams. So he's the
Okay,
earliest group
here's the
here.
deal. Here's one point. In
Here, Frank.
68,
Captured 4 times.
I ran into Colonel Thompson. He was a captain then, he was a detachment commander there in, early 60s. He was a prisoner of war for 9 years. For 9 years, he was POW. So he was one of the detachment commanders, when the Marines showed up there. So you can take 9 from 73, you figure out what year it was.
The earliest team, 62, was Leonard Weaver from first group, and they built Quezon while they were at Wakam. The next one was Korchak in September of 62. Then Vern Gillespie came in February of 63. Same Vern Gillespie that was in the Montagnard Revolt later in 64. Then the 7th group had 3 teams there. Joseph Schwar, Floyd Thompson, who was the longest held POW, and Alan Himes. Finally, you had Chuck Allen, who later took over at Delta.
Yes.
But then Ralph Bostic came in as a PCS team with Pincock as his XO. And that's where we are as we start this meeting. So we've got Lewis, and we've got Church who moves the camp. Lewis comes in PCS to Quezon. Church comes in to move Quezon to Old Lang Vei. And then we've got Steve Austin, who comes in to do capo work after the Brew Village gets bombed. So there we've got the story.
Sam Austin.
Church, you want not moving from Lang Vei, from Quezon to Lang Vei?
Sure. Well, a quick snap. I arrived there on the 15th of April, 1966. I had been the S3 down in Da Nang, and we had just lost Ashau in a savage fight down there, headed up by Dave Blair and Sam Carter. Their 2 detachments were, we all know this heroic story. A102 was Blair, and A503, which is really kind of a Mike force under Sam Carter.
Right.
So I got up there.
I was the XO at Ashau at the time that they were overrun. John Blair had just came in to replace Ivan Jennings, and Lou Maury had just come in to replace me.
That's
Your
And Carter
medic
had
was-
come up with a Mike
exactly-
from
your
Natron.
medic was Carnahan.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to go into enormous detail, but we spent the spring and summer there building out the place, replacing the old PSP runway with aluminum steel plank.
Correct.
And then the Marines, we had the fall came, and that would have been about August or September. The rainy season rocked in, and we were under rain and in a fog for about 6 weeks, at which point we ran out of food. So I sent out hunting parties in September, October. We pulled up some enormous fish from the Da Krong River, fishing, of course, with hand grenades, and a little bit of wild game. We were able to get some food from the Quezon village. Pat Donnell and Barbara Johnson were the 2 Wycliffe Bible translators in the village there, still there. Also the Poilane family, Simard, André Simard, Félix Poilane, and Guillaume Linares were the 3 French planters still on scene. The situation deteriorated throughout this fog for 6 weeks until finally it broke. We were able to hang in there. We got a couple of helicopters in the fog, but nothing else. And then finally, it broke around the first week of November. The Marines came in large force. Dave Lowndes was the commander of the 4th Marines and encircled my camp. And I told him, I said, sir, we have 5 different elements here. We have 3 classified elements and me, and I got about 900 mountain yards under my, or no, 600 uniformed, and then another RFPF of 300. And so we can't operate with you guys surrounding us with an airtight perimeter. So I said, I'd like to move, and we concurred in all that. I went back to get permission from the group in the Trang. And that put us down to Long Vei, probably first week of December. I'm talking old Long Vei in the old French facilities.
Yeah.
With sort of rotten little minefield around it. And then I departed the 1st or the 2nd of January. And my heart broke, of course, because within 4 or 6 weeks, the PT-76 amphibious tanks came in, and you guys had to fight for your goddamn lives. And of course, we lost Frank Stallings in that fight in the bunker. I guess when the height of the battle. That's all I got to say.
Now,
What's your name?
Stallings was with the.
Church, you're
old
confusing
team.
2 events. There was one assault on Old Lang Bay where Stallings
Yeah.
was killed,
So,
Stallings,
and that was 67. Then,
All right,
then
in
in 68 was this tank assault. James O'Barr, you were with Hutton
O'Barr was
when
a
you were
medic.
there? James
O'Barr was
O'Barr.
I was there until I was the medic until January of '67, when I left, came back to the States, and was out of the military. And
You're who?
You were with Hutton on his.
I was very definitely with Captain at that time Hutton.
God bless
Yeah,
you. God bless
Captain
you.
Paul
Jeff.
Hutton.
You and I delivered several dozen babies together because I was an OJT medic and you were our #1 doc. God bless you, buddy.
Yeah,
Well-
I remember you. I remember you now, but I didn't recognize you. Age has made changes in all of us. But,
It does, you know.
Remember Skijua? Gerald Chambers and Bobby Spivey.
I'm not sure. I've been
Then-
going through the list and looking at names, and there are a few from my team that I remember. And
You're O'Barr, right?
Yeah. The Sergeant Major is gone.
Yeah.
I heard the name of Carnahan, Vern Carnahan mentioned.
Yeah.
I took care of him when he came out of Ashau,
Right.
because I was scheduled to go in there as a relief medic, and for some reason my orders got canceled, so I was on standby, and I eventually went in there to pick up Bobby King's body. But I took care of Vern Carnahan and the other team members when they came into Da Nang.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you there when I got hit in the helicopter coming off of Dong Tree? We'd put up some guys from ASA came out and they needed to put up an antenna up on top of Dong Tree. And they sent me and Richard Osborne up there to set up a perimeter for protection. We took up Claymore mines, and on the way back, our chopper got shot up, and they wound up taking me to Dong Hall Hospital. And when I came back, O'Barr.
Good afternoon, Jim.
Yep, looked at me and like, oh my God, you're alive. They were told by the ASA guys that I was killed.
Yeah.
About that Dong Tray thing. I was
Say
there
what?
at Dong Tray in 65 and 66 when Alden Willie, we lost one guy. Alden Willie was killed there. Anyway, that place was an old Catholic school complex. And one of the heartburn, we had 3 detachment commanders in 1 year, to give you an idea. I don't know who the hell was there. They came and left like it was a bus depot. Yeah.
All right,
shit.
we,
And
now we're
another
getting into
thing-
67.
And another thing was the 26th Marine Regiment there, Caisson, and Colonel Lowndes, David Lowndes. Yeah, he just said, "You phonies, get your little slow-pitted army and get the fuck out of here." And that's about the level of cooperation that we ever had with those people.
Remember when B-52 came up there and they ran an operation, they set up over by the runway. And one of the guys, I'm trying to remember his name, he got hit by a Beaver aircraft, the wing of it. Riley. And knocked it, he lost his eye and his teeth. And next time I saw him was in Okinawa. And he was downtown in a bar and he'd get drunk and he'd take his eye out and his teeth and throw them in a blender.
Oh, yeah. He just died.
Nathan, it looks like you're the 4th guy on Hutton's team. Nathan Blaylock?
Who?
Hey, Steve Morris, are
Nathan
you
Blaylock.
still there?
Say what?
Steve Morris?
Yeah,
You
that's
still
me.
You got hit by a 12.5 in your hand while we were on a patrol up the Dong Tree, didn't you?
Yeah,
Is that still bothering you?
yeah.
God
Right
bless
there.
you, big fella. God, I remember that bringing you out of there with a 12.5 in your hand. That's bad business.
Yeah, it wasn't cool.
Nathan?
Yeah, there
Nathan,
was
you were on this team.
Mao Pao was on the team.
Yeah.
Gerald Chambers was commo man.
That's right.
Skijua was another commo man. Bobby Spivey got sent back to the C team because he blew a gasket over some of the CIDG because they kept crawling through the wire going into Caisson-Ville.
Yeah.
And he caught him coming back in and he started running across the camp trying to get in a position he was going to take him out. And he fell into a trench and one of them stepped over the trench, looked down and grinned at him. He blew a gasket. They wound up having to send him back into the C team because they were afraid he was going to start killing them.
Yeah. Spivey was hot-headed. I love the guy. He was a hell of a fighter, but he's not a man to get an argument with.
No,
When his blood was up, he was dangerous.
yep, that's true. That's true.
Hey, you know,
Good guy
you
to be
know,
in combat with, though.
I was in Vietnam near 7 years, 5 of them as prisoner of war. And the most trouble I ever had was with Preacher Hodge. Long Bay turned into his own Devil's Island. You piss him off,
The
you went to
baby
Long
over
Bay.
there.
That was McMurray, Allen, Johnson, you know, and that other asshole, fucking POW collaborator. I can't think of his name right now. But yeah, that was Hodge's Devil's Island.
Young, John Young.
A bunch of them
Hodge-
showed up after Hodge. They had a all Japanese rock and roll band, all girls, and everybody was down there hooping it up and getting loaded. And the next day they were on their way to Long Bay. They
Yeah.
were sinners. They were sinners.
Hodge, when I was battalion commander at Bad Tolts later, Hodge showed up as my sergeant major, and I had to settle him down. I said, Preacher, we love you, partner, but you can't do this. Special forces men are too nervous, and they can't take this heavy dose of church more than about 15 minutes on Sunday. That's all we can take.
Hey, he was the last aircraft to come into Long Bay before it was overrun. And he brought a chaplain and a pair of hand-operated hair clippers. He was going to give us last rites and a fucking haircut.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was
I
a
remember
brave
when-
man. I'm not taking anything off him. Preacher Hodge was good for special forces. We need people like that. It's just that, there are moments of humor when he walks in a room, Anyway, he was a good soldier, and I take nothing off.
Yes,
Absolutely deserved every decoration he had.
absolutely. Yes.
Paul, you came in later in 67. So you could tell us a little about sort of the transition. Were you there during the first attack when Stallings was killed? Paul, were you there when Stallings was killed, when the old Lang Bay was attacked?
Yeah, that's Stallings when Crenshaw and Crenshaw was the captain. Stallings came up. He was still limping from. He came up from A102. I was surprised to even see him walk in the fucking door. Yeah, he was walking with a cane. I said, "What the hell are you doing up here?" He said, "I need to stay up here with you guys." And he was killed in the mess hall doorway in his shorts.
Well, I was with two guys that were there for both those attacks. Bill McMurray was a junior radio operator, and Charlie Lindewald from the Mike Force. They were there for both the attacks.
Yeah.
And Charlie was killed there. We recovered his body, and after 32 years. And then 43 years for the medic from the Mike Force, and 47 for Holt, who was 101's medic. We got all of them in the ground except for Phillips, the junior demo man. But I want to go back to Long Bay just for a minute. You want a recipe for disaster? We had all the leadership was locked up in that bunker, except for Colonel Lowndes or Shungle, and him and Wilkins, the detachment executive officer, were hiding out under the dispensary, and the rest of us were hot dogging around there with a bunch of law rockets that wouldn't fire. And when the fuckers did fire, they wouldn't hit you. And when they did hit, you got real lucky, they would go off. And when they did, they didn't do shit. I took 6 of them and blew the drive sprocket off of one of them. I figured the impact from the round would do it. That was tragic. And we had 4 rounds of 106. And the medic, Holt, got out there on that gun and stopped 3 of them with 4 shots coming up from Long Troy into 104 company area. But the weapons man, heavy weapons man, ordered 106 ammo, and they sent him 105 artillery shells. So anything that could possibly fucking go wrong went wrong there.
Yeah. Who was the heavy weapons guy there? I can't remember his name. He was
Black
he had a
Montana.
Polish name.
Anna.
That was not Polish. It was Hungarian. It was István Bodlak.
Yeah.
István Bodlak was a Hungarian freedom fighter who
Yeah.
showed up at Quezon about 6 or 8 weeks before we moved to Long Bay.
Right.
He was a tough kid, probably older. I was only about 31 or so, 32. He must have been in his mid 40s. He'd been fighting for at least 10 years before he joined Special Forces. I think he was a late Lodge Act guy. The Lodge Act ended up in 1959, and I think he was one of the last people to get in on that legislation.
Yeah, he left there, and I heard that he had gone to another camp, and on the 104, the breech didn't latch, and they fired it, and it flew open, and he lost his elbow.
Oh,
And that's the last I ever heard of him.
yeah.
We
So
were
I don't know.
launching, we were launching CIDG with that 106 at Long Bay. They shouldn't stand behind it, you know. I saw somebody fly through the air, and then when they fired the gun, it pulled the pickets, a wire around the inner perimeter. They tore the pickets up, and every time they fire that gun, they go clang, 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 and those things that flip around in the wire. It was a goddamn nightmare. Get this. Well, we don't have that. Well, get that. Well, we can't get to it because they had 250 gallons of fucking gasoline stored in the middle of the camp, and they got a 50 caliber machine gun off the team house down there, and they didn't get the tripod with it. So my most vivid memory were 3 guys trying to hold that Ma Deuce down and fire it, and shit was going everywhere, and they hit that gasoline and kaboom. It was the light of day, man. I mean, I'm telling you, you couldn't do squat in the middle of that inner perimeter. We couldn't get to the demo. We couldn't get shit.
Colonel Clark.
I remember we went down to Long Bay, and they had a unmarked French minefield, and orders came down. They wanted us to remove the stuff.
They were bouncing Betties.
Richard
They were bouncing
Osborne,
Betties.
the demo guy, and he asked me if I would help him. And I said, well, shit, if you're crazy enough to try it, I'll try it too. And so we went in there and trying to get these mines out. And, you know, unmarked French minefield is pretty shitty, you know. And the goddamn CIDG were sitting there on the edge of the wire watching us. And one of them was picking it, throwing a rock and saying, there's one. And Richard pulled out his gun and opened up on him. And I thought, Jesus Christ, what are these guys doing? But we got a bunch of them out. And finally they decided, you know, don't do any more. It was too dangerous. You had all the wait a minute vines growing through them. And it's a slow ass process.
Yeah. My heroes at Long Bay were those spads that came off the Coral Sea, those A1s. They were in there at under 300 foot overcast, pulling high G turns in the treetops and working with them 20 millimeter guns. Yeah, watch this one. He pickled them. Mark 81, I think it was. And you seen that thing skipping across the top of the camp like you threw a rock out there in the water, you know.
Yeah.
But they hosed the NBA off of that bunker, and they had a plan. They'd make 3 passes over the camp, 2 of them hot, and the last one a dummy. And that's when everybody broke up out of that bunker and ran. They had to leave the medic behind. Moreland, he was hit in the head with a chunk of concrete when they breached that bunker, you know. And they tried everything. They put gas and thermite and freaking gasoline and a million hand grenades and satchel charges down in there. But the boys wasn't giving up. There was a medic there, Fragos, a Greek immigrant kid. And this NBA called down there and said, is your captain there?
Clark.
And Fragos said, yeah, he's here. Said, have you got a weapon? And he said, yeah, I got a weapon.
Colonel Clark.
You got ammunition? Yeah, I got some, and it's all for you, fucker. And he leans out the door of the bunker and fires off a gun, and they went crazy. They dug a hole down
I'd like
alongside
to hear what about
finally,
happened in the Ville.
and finished up and
January
filled it up with TNT
68.
and blew a hole, breached it from the side. That's when the A1 showed up. These guys would never made it out of there. Yeah, it was
Get in there,
bad
Colonel
crazy.
Clark. I'd sure like to hear about what happened in January 68 in the case on Ville.
Tell us about it, John. And Bruce,
Yeah.
why don't you and John talk about what's going on? on the, in between Camduck and, in between Lang Bay and Quezon during that time
Well, I got
in the
there.
village?
I got there in Quezonville in July of '67. And I was the assistant district advisor. Jim Whitenack, Major Jim Whitenack was the advisor. And we actually made trips fairly frequently, both to Long Vei, the old French fort, where the salt guys were, Duncan and Major Duncan and crew, and then up to Quezon to get water before FOB3 went in.
Mhm.
It was that time of my life in Quezon was very, very calm. We did take a couple sniper rounds a few times, a mortar round, but we couldn't find contact around the district headquarters. And then, of course, on about January 19th or 20th, John Belanco arrived with the Marine Combined Action Company that was co-located in the district headquarters. And then on the 20th, we went out on a patrol, Captain Nee and about 40 RFs and PFs. And we were going southwest of Quezon Village. And we set up a little patrol base on top of a hill, and then we're sending squad-sized patrols out in cloverleaf patterns, just trying to see if they could find any indication of any activity. And I got a call from Long Vei saying, get out of there. Yeah, that's the map. And I was down, if you go to Long Vei Village, go down about 3 kilometers southwest. And when the operator from Long Vei called, I said, because we didn't have good relations with the Marines at that time, and I'll talk about that in a second.
I was down by
I
Laubau.
said, what the are you talking about? We got this cleared. He said, get out of there now. That's all I can tell you. Get out of there. So I found Captain Nee, and we gathered up our little patrols and made it back to the district headquarters. And about 45 minutes after we cleared the area, an arc light went in. And that was really the beginning of all the bullshit in Quezon Village and Quezon for me. That night I took my last hot shower for about 2.5 months. And on the morning of the 21st, they hit the district headquarters. Now, let me back up and talk about Marine Army relations.
Shit. Fuckers.
The 3 Army elements in the case in Hunghua district, which was the name of where Quezon was.
You've got mail.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, AOL. We all worked together. We shared, and the biggest thing we shared was beer. And there was a time when the special forces could not get any beer, and I could get pallet loads from Quang Tri. And the Marines started pissing and moaning about us importing beer. So we actually started our own radio network. We came up with our own frequencies, came up with our own different call signs so that we could coordinate beer delivery, among other things, on that network. And so that turned out to be kind of the way that the Army guys stayed in touch with each other. And, that leads me to, I guess, the final point I'd make without getting into the whole fight around the district headquarters. That's the problem of unity of command. It was totally friggin' lacking.
Yes.
Alpha 101, talked to one Special Forces headquarters, FOB3, the SALT guys, they talked to a different headquarters going through Hue-Phu-Bai to Saigon. Obviously, I talked to my province headquarters, which was in Quang Tri. The Marines talked at the combat base, talked to the 3rd Mardiv in the air base there right along Route 9. And the CAC guys, the Combined Action Company Marines, talked to a separate headquarters in Hue-Phu-Bai. Now, obviously, because they were Marines, David Lowndes could give them orders as if he was formally in their chain of command. The only thing Lowndes had going for him was he was the senior officer in the area, and he owned the artillery.
Yeah.
And that's about how we thought about him. After Longueuil was overrun, I got in deep trouble with Lowndes because we sent out a patrol to round up as many of the families of the Brew PFs that were in the FOB3 with us. And 2 days later, we had 1,400 refugees. Well, those refugees had to get onto Lowndes' helicopters, and he wasn't very happy about that. He refused to talk to me up until he died. The other exciting thing, I listened to the whole fight at Longueuil on the Marine Command Net, sitting in FOB3. And it really was a one-way conversation. Special Forces asked and the Marines said no. And thankfully, George Cuomo, who by the way was one hell of a soldier, organized the getting the people out of Longueuil using Special Forces from FOB3 and helicopters that were finally scrounged up. A story about the helicopters is Westmoreland was in Da Nang, and specifically he was having a meeting with I Corps commander, and they wouldn't let Colonel Ladd in to see him. And Ladd was out trying to find helicopters, get your asses out of Longueuil. And so Ladd finally went to Abrams electronically, and Abrams told Tompkins, General Tompkins at 3rd Mardiv to free up the assets. And from what I understand, he was quite clear in his guidance. And that, by the way, is not how history records it.
Hell no, I'd like to say something about that.
But if you go to Carlisle Barracks and go into Jonathan Ladd's official papers that are stored there, that's how he told the story. So that's my little story in a nutshell. John could talk about the fight in the village. He was the guy that was orchestrating it. All I was doing was blowing up 1,100 rounds of artillery, and I don't know how many.
I'd like to add a little something to that Longueuil thing.
Sure.
The only connection point of connection between the Marines and the Army was up in Westmoreland's office. That's
Yep.
it. That's the end of
Oh,
that.
and if you look in my little book that I wrote about the village fight, Expendable Warriors, and by the way, we were all expendable in the Battle of
No
Cape.
shit. No shit. They
In my
had,
opinion, I actually at one point called us bait. We were bait for the North Vietnamese so that Westmoreland could get them in there and pound them with B-52 strikes. But
well,
yeah,
they can call it whatever they wanted, but at Long Bay there, we lost. I like to make a joke, put my Irish accent on, say, yeah, we lost, but it was a really good fight. They lost enough people, the NBA did, that those units didn't go on to continue the mission. We bent their dicks real good. The
well,
thing was that
we estimate that in the village fight, counting all the air, artillery, and the arc light we put in the night after the attack, that we took out and rendered a regiment combat ineffective because the guys at Longvay who were on a patrol picked up a Chuhoy who said that his regiment had been destroyed twice. Once coming down the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and they'd gone back and rearmed and refitted. And then the second time after they hit the district headquarters. So that's.
yeah, at Long Bay, they had a Chuhoy walk into the camp unmolested by anybody, walked into the team house, scared the living shit out of Lieutenant Bailey,
Colonel Clark.
handed him his Chuhoy ticket and said, I want to get out of here. And that was quite a day, but between the Army and the Marines now, along Highway 9, there were NBA ambush positions.
Colonel Clark.
Nobody
Tell me
expected,
what you think of how many kills that was done in
nobody wanted
24 hours at
expected the
Quezon-Ville?
Marines to send a force down that road. I was I went back there twice. I talked to some NBA vets that were there for that fight. At Sword Lake, we were having a fucking cappuccino and smoking cigarettes and talking about that battle. It was a really interesting moment. But when
Colonel Clark.
Cuomo's little Hey You group was ready to go into Long Bay and do what they could do, Lowndes wouldn't let them go. We had a whole Mike Force company at Quantree City sitting there, ready to go right down the stack, but they wouldn't fly them, and they wouldn't fly them until Westmoreland fired their asses up and said, "You get some goddamn aircraft in there."
Colonel Clark.
So when they
about
landed,
the village fight, what do
they
you
picked
estimate
up,
how many kills were done within a
they
24-hour
picked
period?
up
All right.
everybody that was there still alive, and at 17:30, that was all over, and I was standing out there. They only had about half a dozen NDA inside the camp, just looking around, and all of a sudden, I'm down on that LZ there at the old camp, and here come a whole assault line of NDA. When I talked to them vets, them NDA vets, they said that the commander heard about that and said, break down those ambush positions and get your asses down there to that runway, Old Long Bay, and secure it. And that's when I got captured, was when they came down that road. They had kill teams out there, killing Lottie and everybody, man. It was a goddamn
Colonel
nightmare.
Clark, on
And
January 21, how many
let's see.
estimated kills occurred within that
Airstrikes,
24-hour period of time?
arc lights. Brandy and I were Ian out of Laos. We came across the Sepon River back into the camp at Long Bay, and we got caught. But they were arc lighting every goddamn thing. At one point, we had one come in so close that it ripped the canopy right off the top of us. It's like somebody tearing the covers off of you, you know, in your bed. And let me see what else I got here. The
Colonel Clark.
Marines at grunt level were, you know, they're grunts. I mean, when you're neck deep in the shit, nobody
Colonel
can
Clark.
tell what uniform you're wearing.
Can
you
you
know,
tell me about
that
the
was
Bill
about it.
fight?
Out
Colonel
here.
Clark. Hello, Colonel Clark. Can you tell me
Hello,
about
John
the Bill
Bill
fight?
John, what, Bruce
Hello?
Clark.
Yes, yes.
He-
I'm here.
John's
I'm
trying
here,
to
Steve.
ask you
What?
a question. John,
Yes.
John is trying to say
My
something.
question is, on January 21st, within a 24-hour period of time, between our 173 men, what was estimated on how many actual confirmed kills within that time because of your artillery calling in and the RFs we had, the PFs we had, and the 4 Army advisors we had? Give me some idea what the kills were compared to any other battle in the Quezonville.
Well, John, as you know, because you picked up a lot of them, we captured almost 175 weapons, to include the first RPG-7s that were ever captured in country. Most of those weapons were still covered with cosmoline, which showed they'd just come out of storage and had really never been fired yet. The estimates are 600 casualties inflicted, but we have 175 weapons. We know that we hit a human convoy of litter bearers, and there were several hundred of those with an airstrike that never got a chance to pick up their bodies. So 600 is probably a very conservative estimate. We lost 11 Vietnamese or Montagnards, and obviously we had some Americans wounded, but we took no casualties. Does that answer your question?
No, I want to know between the airstrikes, the Marines, the RFs, the PFs, a more accurate count from what you told me at that time, which was written in your book, that occurred.
Well, I told you, the estimate is 600 KIA, but a regiment rendered combat ineffective. I don't have an exact number.
Would you say that that's the largest amount in the whole battle for 77 days at Quezon? There was more kills that happened out of that ville.
I'm not going to say it because, you know, I was the guy pulling the trigger most of the time on the artillery, but my province senior advisor, Brewer, that's what he said. He said it was the biggest battle of the whole Quezon fight. Now, you know, I'd have to defer to Long Vei because we didn't fight any tanks. And you know, going back, I'll reflect on something. When the tanks were first reported, when the 33rd Royal Laotian Infantry Battalion came over from Laos and reported that, nobody would believe them that they had been overrun by tanks. But the guys in FOB 3 said, yeah, that's possible. They had PT-76s over there. And so they were trying to help Long Vei get anti-tank weapons and mines. I don't think they ever got the mines.
No.
I think they ended up at the combat base and I had to put a minefield in.
I
Nobody
reported,
else knew how to put a minefield in and register it.
I
Did the
reported,
Marines
I
refuse
reported
to
on
go
two
out to
different.
Long Vei?
This is,
Did the Marines refuse to go out to Long Vei?
Yes,
They did.
yeah, they did.
yes.
They
Hey,
also
hey,
refused to come to Quezon. That's my
We,
most famous
did the
line of the
Marines-
whole friggin' battle.
We didn't expect
But-
anything from the Marines except some air support, some fucking helicopters to take our people into that camp. That's all we ever wanted. And the fire illumination force. And they're out there, well, describe the target. Look, asshole, all you have to know is fire mission, troops in the open, and
I can't
fire.
hear you.
Son of a bitch.
Was it the Marines or the
Yeah.
Army that tried to
Okay.
relieve us at Quezonville?
The Marines would not fly the reaction force from FOB3 or the Mike force at Quang Tri City.
They
We
wouldn't,
just
they
sit out
wouldn't
there and
fly
play.
Vietnamese. They would not fly Vietnamese.
That's right.
All right, let me,
You know,
can I
When the
interject
district
something?
headquarters got ordered to withdraw, we got ordered to withdraw because Lowndes pulled the artillery away from us and said he wouldn't fire anymore in support of us. And oh, by the way, when the 37th Rangers came to Quezon Combat Base, their original goal was to restore the district headquarters because it was a government headquarters for the South Vietnamese country. It was a political headquarters. They didn't want to lose it. And as I understand it, there was also a Mike Force company operating out of somewhere that got awful close to the district headquarters, but never got the order to go back and seize it. So there's a lot of crap flying around out there that ran into Lowndes, and I think Westmoreland's goal for a set piece, firepower intensive battle around the Quezon Combat Base.
Can I interject
Do
something?
you feel that
I would like to,
left us out and abandoned us in the village?
Hell yes, John, they were abandoned. You got on a helicopter. I had to leave over by the land because they wouldn't take the Vietnamese and Montagnards on their helicopters. So I put my advisors, except for one, on the helicopters with the wounded. And then Captain Nee and about 150 of us, 140 of us walked out. And fortunately, we had indirect fire support from the 4-deuce mortar at FOB3. And made it out safely. But then again, they wouldn't take the indigenous troops into the combat base. And that led to the situation that I think it was Austin was talking about a little while ago, where we got shot up from the rear. You remember that. You were at the other end of the FOB compound from me.
Did the SOG team at FOB3 put us out in front of their line, and then brought in Camp Boats behind
Yeah,
us?
they had a second. The FOB3 guys had a second line of defense, which makes great sense, all around what was called the $1 Million Bunker. That was going to be their last line of defense if the NVA attacked and overran the wire at FOB3. There was a group of Cambodians in positions around the bunker. By the way, that bunker was something to behold.
Yeah, I'll tell you,
Did the Marines
about-
have their tanks leveled at us at FOB3?
they had
Marines-
FOB3. They had FOB3 outside the perimeter at Quezon with a line company behind them, and they closed the wire.
That's
because there were
correct.
the indigenous troops there. And when the Rangers got there, they did the same goddamn thing. They stuck them on a bulge outside of the base and put wire around them.
Yep.
The guy was goddamn bad crazy. I mean, I understand his concern about infiltrators in the indigenous force, but Jesus Christ, we called in for artillery. No. can you get us some aircraft to fly our people around? No. Right up until Westmoreland told me to get off their asses and get it done. And I understand that he relieved the Marine I Corps commander over that whole thing. But
Yeah, I think so.
I had a Marine Huey gunship try to come in and get me. And they shot that aircraft that had 61 entry holes in it. And it screwed the goddamn co-pilot up so bad that they had to send him back to the States. The crew captain,
How many
the crew
airstrikes
captain,
did you call in on our wire?
guy named Crutcher, was holding this co-pilot back to keep him out of the controls so Captain Kufeld could fly the aircraft. And they were all shot up and they were limping back to Quezon. And
Colonel Clark, how
Captain
many airstrikes did you
Kufeld
call
said,
in on our wire
we're
during
going
January
down. We're
21st?
going to set this thing down. And Crutcher told him, you fly this motherfucker until it falls out of the sky. They managed to get across the wire before they set it down. But that's
Colonel Clark, how many airstrikes
nobody
did
was
you
looking
call in
for
our
us.
wire on January 21st?
Nobody was looking for us. The Mike Force couldn't get back in there. Me and Brandy, we E&E for 7 goddamn days, you know, had to carry his ass. And to get back to Long Bay, it was a gamble, you know, that the Mike Force would have reoccupied that place, or at least would come in there and get us, you know. And
Colonel Clark,
Hey,
again,
how many
whenever-
airstrikes did you call in?
how many
on,
airstrikes did
on
I
wire?
call in? I don't know how many airstrikes I called in, John. The first one was controlled by a Marine FAC, 2 F-4s, one of them got shot down. He said, that's all I could get you. Now, this is one of the things where I think the Special Forces, and I don't know who provided it, but there was a radio relay team up on top of Hill 110, I think it was 1110, which was across the valley from the combat base and on the high ground above the Ralquan River. And those guys were my lifesaver because that was my radio link back to Quang Tri and the province headquarters. And from there, they sent out a separate FAC, Ward Britt, who flew under the clouds, because if you remember, 2021 January 1968 was extremely cloudy, but Ward got out there and started diverting aircraft off of the Ho Chi Minh Trail just as fast as he could use them. And every time he put an airstrike in, we found more NVA, and we just kept hitting them all afternoon. He landed at Quang Tri under fire, refueled, and came back up to put more in. But how many aircraft went in? I don't have a clue. All I do is every time I talk to Ward Britt, I say thank you, because he was a very very brave guy. Went on to fly for Delta. He's now retired, living in Florida.
How many operations did you do with SOG?
How many operations did I do with SOG? I did one. And that was the afternoon of the 21st of January. A Lieutenant Colonel Baldwin was the head of that SOG element, which the guys at FOB3 responded to.
Is that
And
the
he
same
was-
Colonel Baldwin that came down to B-36?
It probably is.
Yeah.
And when he heard the stories about all of the captured arms that we hadn't got out of there, I think his eyes lit up with a silver star in them. And so we mounted a raid, and there was a Captain Wilcox who was part of the guys at FOB3, and he was the raid commander, and I was his assistant, deputy, whatever. And you're talking about old French mine fields. We had one on the south side of the district headquarters. And of course, that's where the helicopters put us down, right in the middle of it. But fortunately, I had been in there once before and we got everybody led through that so that we could destroy everything that was left in the district headquarters. But more importantly, get all those 175 weapons onto helicopters so that there was this great display of NVA weapons to be displayed at FOB3. I remember.
I have a question. Does anybody know the size of the force that hit Long Bay?
There were over 900 infantry that were in there. They had 152 artillery coming across the Sapone River.
Yeah,
at
straight out of Korak.
They firing from Korak with these howitzers. We had about 900 infantry and then 11 PT-76 tanks. They left about 250. Those MPA were killed there at Long Bay. It's about even. It's about an even deal. But
you know, when they finally got permission to bomb Korak, which was in, I think, March finally of 68, because it was in Laos, that damn thing blew up for 3 days because there was so much NVA artillery and everything else there.
Well, I'll tell you what, they ran a whole bunch of arc lights down there. I'll testify to that because me and Brandy were right in the middle of them, humping our way back to Long Bay.
Robbie, you want to get on here now? Okay.
Prior to that, Long Bay getting hit on an operation down by the French prison, Labao. We found all kinds of ammunition down there, cached. And one operation down there, we saw lights in the mountains, and everybody said, "Oh, you're dreaming. You don't know what you're talking about." Well, these sons of bitches came right down the Sapone River. And at the same token, we saw 50 to 75 elephants going across one hillside, and reported that. It was never sent forward because they said we were smoking something. And I said, how can you explain this? When you see 50 to 75 elephants with shit on them, they're carrying stuff.
Yeah.
The shit's fixing to happen. And nobody wanted to pay attention to it.
Yeah, with the yellow.
It's just like the colonel was saying earlier that they had reported tanks and stuff before, and nobody wanted to recognize it.
We went on a trail, we went on a patrol, and we found the tracks of the PT-76s. We could hear them running and backfiring because they started out with a whole bunch of tanks, and they only got 11 of them to work long enough to attack Long Bay. But we saw some shit on that Ho Chi Minh Trail. We walked it 2 months. 2 months we walked from Long Bay up to North Vietnam.
Yeah, I just never understood why they did something about it earlier.
They had streams that they had pile rocks up on and made roads out of them and pulled the canopy in over the top. And if they get to a place that the trucks couldn't negotiate, they built a bamboo rack with a platform, and they drive the truck up on the platform, and they'd moat high bah creek, moat high bah, and jack that truck up and drive it off of there. So if somebody told me about elephants, I wouldn't blink an eye.
I left Long Bay 2 days before they hit. And I was lucky that I left early. I wished I hadn't.
I wished I'd have called in sick.
Shit. But it was everybody knew it was fixing to happen, and it seemed like nobody cared. That's what I felt about it.
Nobody believed us. That's it.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Nobody
Professional jealousy.
believed that. They thought we were full of shit, especially the Marines, you know.
You
Yeah.
know, I
But again,
agree
about
with
those
I agree with
Marines-
what you just said. Nobody wanted to agree with us, but I have to wonder if it's because it didn't fit the narrative, or they didn't want to do anything about it because of the bigger plan. You know, I keep
What
going
plan?
back to, they
What plan was
knew
that?
in
What
late
plan was that?
October of 1967 that the NVA were coming to Quezon.
That's right.
That was, I have the unclassified now unclassified, TS Spoke,
Hill 881
information.
is a good example. You know, Hill 881 was a good example. We lost, you know, not we, but the Marines lost a lot of people that they shouldn't have lost because of the fact that the evidence was there, the proof was there. They should have just bombed the living shit out of that hill and they'd have got him. But no, they're going to send platoons up there, high diddle diddle, gun barreled asshole up a mountain yard trail, and they lose contact with them. And then they send another platoon up the same trail, and they come straggling back in. Yeah, they're in the trees, they're in the ground, they're everywhere. Well, what the hell do you expect? You know, the evidence was there. Why didn't they do something about it? And that's that's what bothered me, because special
One of my-
forces reported
The
it.
problem is that Colonel Lowndes only let 2 patrols out of FOB3 from the Marines, which we did with the SOG people.
Right.
And, they just didn't allow the Marines to go out and do the kills, and that's what Marines are there to do. Lowndes
Yeah.
was just hiding in his little.
That 881 north and south, that was one of my E&E points. At night I could see the illumination coming off the hilltops, and that was my only navigation. I'd limp along during the day, and then at night I'd watch the artillery, the illumination. I'd move towards that, and I got close enough to that business up there at 881 South that I could yell. I was yelling at the Marines. I was yelling my name, my unit, my call sign, every other goddamn thing. And you know what I heard coming back? Was gunfire. And the joker says, "Hey, that fucker speaks English."
Yeah, I told a captain up there, Captain Dokes, who was the Marine intel officer up there at Quezon after they had taken over. And I told him, I said, "All due respect, sir, you know, Charlie's not coming here. Mr. Charles is. And they're coming here to kick your ass because that's exactly what they're going to do." He said, he said, "You don't know what you're talking about. There's just a local roving band of guerrillas." I
Yeah,
said,
right.
"Yeah, well, when you see spider holes and all that shit going up a trail, that's not an accident." But that's the way it
It's
was.
pretty sad. It's pretty sad commentary.
No jealousy.
Yeah, it was pretty sad commentary, whole thing.
Yeah, that was a sad situation.
I would like
Because
to ask, you guys, I'd like to ask you guys that had experience working with SOG. We had B-52 up there. We had SOG. We had Tiger Hound.
Yeah.
The Air Force pilots were still co-living with us in a hole in the ground until finally they moved on. I had to take some people into Laos to bail out one of the SOG detachments. I don't know if you guys ever did that, but we had some people who got into deep trouble over there. They were in, all about the SOG organizations, as we all do. And they got in a tight spot. And so I had to bring a company of CIDG over there for about 6 hours to block some places to get them out. Anybody else do that?
Yeah. You remember Charlie Berg? He was with
Berg.
Charlie Berg. Yeah, he lost his leg over there in Laos.
Oh,
Yeah,
Charlie, yeah.
Yeah, and
No, Charlie Berg lost his leg at FOB3 near the.
right, that was up at Quezon. And but he was over. They were going across the border.
yeah.
And I used to do. I did several overflights with Tiger Hound, and more or less up the valley up there behind Quang Tree
Yeah,
and or Dong Tree, excuse me.
yeah.
They were a good bunch of guys. They did a good job. But
Well, Charlie Berg took me back to Vietnam in 1970. Back to Long Bay, and I laid that camp out. Then I went back again in 77 with JPAC, and the Vietnamese had straightened out a loop in Highway 9 and took it right to that camp. Just
Yeah.
destroyed everything. And they quarried rock for the road off the other side of the hill. So all that was left there was the floor for the chalk and supply bunker number 2. And I got into a dispute with one of the JPAC people about what that bunker was. I said, that's supply bunker number 2. I used to live in the goddamn thing. And they said, well, no. I said, you jokers dig deep enough there and you're going to come up with a bunch of sardine cans because that's what I was living on. And I opened one up just before the shit hit the fan. And they dug down there and they found that goddamn sardine can with the spoon still in it.
One of those deep dish pieces, right?
That was on CNN. I was real proud of that.
Alex shook the whole thing. He's got a big appetite. Yeah, pepperoni be fine.
Steve, you're on mute.
I'm sorry?
I have to go to work.
Yeah, go ahead. You just put it in, I'll take it out. It's already, he said he'd be here at 2.
Yeah.
Steve, you're on mute.
Oh.
Somebody talking to me?
Yeah. David and White and Paulo, you were there late 67. So you
Well,
want to
fairly
tell us
good.
anything about that time?
I got into Long Bay when the Seabees were there building to the camp. I believe it was to the south. I was a radio operator. And of course, you know us, we spent all our time down a hole going diddy dum dum diddy. And the other operator was a guy named Joseph Burke from Philadelphia. I often wondered about
Hey,
him.
Marina.
I'm sorry.
Can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
I can
You
hear
said
you.
you went to Long Bay as a radio operator.
Steve, nobody can hear
You know
you.
McMurray?
Steve?
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah,
can hear you. Something's wrong with your mic.
Bill
Can you hear me?
McMurray was a radio operator. He was there both times that the camp was overrun.
Can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
Bill was there twice.
I hear
Say
you.
something again.
So what's the name of the radio operator that I was talking to?
Still around. He goes by a China cat name.
Who?
Joseph Burke is
Yeah,
still around.
he was a commo guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
He lives in New Jersey. He goes by the name China Jack. But he didn't show up here yet. So I
I'm
don't
trying
know
to
what
remember who
happened
the
to him.
medic was.
Who was
the
Patricia's
medic?
iPhone? Over here, unknown. Patricia's iPhone, and you're muted.
Yeah. Talk to her.
Yeah, who is this?
Hey.
This is Richard Suda. Hey, Mike.
Okay, good. All right.
Hey, Steve, when you get a chance, I could offer some experience and that have been forecasted just what these guys went through. I need to know what year you was there, but I was there.
Yeah.
half a year in 1966. And I was sent up there to get killed. Now, that's something that seemed back in them days, if somebody they didn't like elsewhere or the higher up the chain, well, they said, so we're gonna send you a case on and don't expect to ever get you back.
Yeah.
That sounds like
That's-
Sergeant Major Hodge.
Who's that?
Hodge, Long Bay was his Devil's Island. You pissed him off, you were at Long Bay.
Yeah. Well, but we just got on the net here and you guys were talking about all the elephants that were discovered. I don't know what years that was, but we got guys get killed doing recons on just that. And we sent information to Saigon and they said, oh, you're building the story up. You make They wouldn't believe you, you know. And we said, what we gotta do, get some elephant shit and truck it down there to you. There's men that lost their lives and then now this is 66. Were any of you there in 66?
Yes, right here. I was.
Yeah, I was.
Steve Morris.
Well, they called me Robbie and they called me the sheriff and I was sort of
Yeah, I remember you.
I
remembers you.
I wasn't the usual kind of guy.
Steve Morris remembers you.
I like to fight. And but listening to you all talk, I'd like to share this with you too. And then I would be quiet. I was there, of course, and who was there when I was there?
Steve Morris was.
Yeah.
And one of the four.
Well, if you knew and remember me, you know I wasn't no psycho. I just I like to mix it up, but with the enemy especially. I wouldn't take no R&Rs. I wouldn't do. They want somebody to go back where the flagpole was and scrounge material and everything. I says, no.
Yeah.
They said, well, you got to get a break out of here. I don't need a break. I come over to fight and I'm going to fight. And they used to call me the sheriff around the camp because I set up the CBs and I had any of the problems with them. And I don't hardly remember ever sleeping. I don't hardly remember. I try to look back on my life and I can't remember what I ate. I mean, I remember they had some area where some mountain yard ladies were cooking, did the cooking. We still butchered cattle, brutalized, climbing on them and chopping them up with machetes and throwing them in them big iron pots. Well, I wanted to share with all of you, and you appreciate that I was there when they brought the Marines in. And boy, you remember back in them days, we had a lot of racial problems. And for Marines, they lacked a lot of discipline. They set up their perimeter outside our perimeter. And they got so worried about our people to shoot their people, they made us break our machine guns down and take our ammo almost and everything. And you know, I don't know afterwards if you guys were allowed to have any beer in the camp, but I started out hot on and then the last 6 months up at Quezon. But neither camp we were allowed to have any beer. But the Marines come in there and they started having beer and everything, and they wouldn't dig their holes, improve their position. I says, look, you don't work for me, but you got to put some more Claymore mines out here. And I put a Claymore mine in. had backup means of setting it off. I had for two, in case you go move to another position. But I worked my butt off, and that's what I was born to do, I felt. And I didn't want to go home when my time was up. Because I was, here's how bad they wanted to get rid of me. I don't know why they didn't like me so much, because I'm not a butt kisser. But I tell it like it is, and that's all right. But General Westmoreland did. He come up there, he heard about me. And they says, Robbie, you just get busy around, you know, you don't like, you know, rank.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So in camp, all I wear is a pair of shorts. I always carried a 45 with me. I didn't wear no socks. And I just wanted to keep my feet tough and ready for patrols.
Oh, but I don't know how.
When I got there, I knew now you'll understand this. They said, man, they did want to get rid of me.
Car. We'll have to keep on working.
Remember Elephant? I had when Seabees went over to Elephant and got this D848. What's the name of that bulldozer? D8, I guess the big bulldozer. They've been sitting over there rusting, and good old Tiger Hound, boy, weren't they something? You remember we had the Mountain Guards dig a pit to back that L-19 in overnight and protect it, because everything above the ground had holes in it. But anyway, so they sent a CB mechanic over there. They're cool. He got that bulldozer running. They had to Laotians bring it over across the river. I forgot the name of that river.
St.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Well, then they sent me out there by myself, dropped me off on that bulldozer, and I had to drive that bulldozer all the way back to our camp. And we wanted it real bad to clear our fields of fire, especially after the Marines got in there. Okay. Now, you know, that's a long ride to be going real slow, chug up the highway. I was by myself. I was on my own. Another time, after one of the SOG teams got wiped out and called firearm themselves across the border.
Yep.
They sent either Cowboy or Mustachio up there, and they says, well, they ain't going over there. Yeah, we need to do it then.
Huh?
Oh, Robbie, he can do it.
Yeah.
Anytime somebody needs something, they like to use me, and that's all right.
You remember Gerald Chambers?
Huh?
You remember Gerald Chambers?
It sort of rings a bell.
He in Skidua.
Pardon?
Yeah. Gerald Chambers. He was the commo guy. He's he's down in Fayetteville. He's in bad shape. He's probably not going to live another 3 months. He's got cancer so bad.
Oh boy, that's like there's a guy, Richard Gross. He was
John, can I speak up a moment?
Sure.
You were the construction engineer on
Yeah.
my detachment. God bless you. I'm the man who set up the mission to go recover that D4 bulldozer from the 33rd Lao Battalion. It was, in fact, almost exactly 30 miles that you drove that bulldozer back from the 33rd Lao. And the reason you did so was because the commander over there, I'm a French speaker, and this guy was a Frenchman, French speaker.
Yeah.
So we chattered quite a while. We took you and me and the civil affairs officer, and there were about 6 or 8 other guys. And we actually did not have you driving back all by yourself. Come on. there were at least 6 other people surrounding the bulldozer as you drove it back at 1 mile an hour. But God bless you, it was a brave thing to do.
Well, I forgot about, if there was anybody out there, you know.
Yeah, your buddy was Richard Osborne.
Yeah, I better write these names down because
Yeah.
I'm bad at not.
Yeah,
remembering.
Richard got killed down at Ashow
Yeah.
going in to
they
get Von
was-
Price's body out.
Well, let me see. Well, the other way they wanted to get rid of me, they sent me out there with door gun, one box of ammo, linked ammo for the 30 caliber machine gun on the door to check, try to find body parts. Now that's not a normal thing to do. But that's okay. We did it. Didn't find anything. There's another way they tried to get rid of me, but anyway, I made it through. And I wanted to explain, when the Marines come up there, it was constant. Same problem is friction between us. We didn't seem to see eye to eye. Right off the bat, I see that problem. The day I was leaving, I had to shave. I looked in the mirror and I didn't even recognize myself because it didn't look like I didn't. And the Marine major come on there. You guys, they call the sheriff up there. I said, yeah. What are you doing here? He quickly let me know he's a major and he's taking the camp over. So.
I enjoyed it, guys. I got it split. I got a meeting I got to go to.
And I'm done talking. I said what been bugging me for years, and I somehow Steve is going to help me
Steve.
with some names. And I'm glad there's 2 or 3 of you guys that remember me, and I hope you don't remember anything bad other than that. I liked it. I just gave it all. See ya. I'll be listening.
Hey, Steve Sam Austin, can I jump in?
Go, Sam. Sam,
Okay.
go ahead.
I can't stay with you much longer, but you know, my story is entirely different from yours. If you want to listen to it, it'll take me about 5 minutes.
Go.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I say, my story is entirely different. I was commissioned in 1958. Served 2 years of active duty. Ended up as a captain in a civil affairs reserve unit. Opened my mail one day. Said there was a set of orders that said, "Put your boots back on. You're going down to Fort Gordon, Georgia, and form up a new civil affairs company." So I did. I ended up as the exec to reform the 29th Civil Affairs Unit, which had been decommissioned in Korea. So we spent a year putting together a company, the 29th Civil Affairs Company. We equipped them, we trained them, but our mission was to go to Vietnam and serve the Marine Corps. So in May of '66, we shipped out, went to Da Nang, which is where the company was headquartered. I ended up in Phu Bai with a team. We started out with the 4th Marines. And our mission basically was to accompany the Marines on their combat missions. And if any of the Vietnamese were involved, we were to peel off and to do our good works with the Vietnamese. So I stayed there until the 4th Marines moved north. 3rd Mardiv came in. We did the same thing with 3rd Mardiv. I got orders in March of '67 because the Air Force thought they were going to be bombing a North Vietnamese camp in Laos, but instead they dropped their load at Long Vei. They put two 500-pounders in the gate and dropped all their fire bombs down the hill and burned down a Montagnard village.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
And
yes.
so I got orders to take 3 of my men up to Long Vei and to try to work with the Montagnards, which we did. And our reason for being in Long Vei was, you know, they basically fed us and kept us there while we peeled off and did our work with the Montagnards. But while we were at Long Vei, we got attacked every night. And, you know, I put on my infantry hat and, you know, we joined the firefight with all the special forces. But, you know, I go back to the comment that somebody made earlier. You got to be crazy to be a special forces, but you got to be nuts to be a Marine.
You gotta be good.
You got to be nuts to be a Marine. So anyway, I spent most of my year with the Marines in combat. And when my time was up, we left Long Vei before the attack. We left either at the end of April or the 1st of May or something like that. And went back and, you know, I hung up my sword and shield and then spent 31 years with the Federal Aviation Administration. So that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Good on you, dude.
Good man.
Where am I at? I'm in Cumming, Georgia.
Georgia.
It's near Atlanta.
Hey, I promise I wouldn't say more, but I just want to give you an invite to come to Great Falls, Montana. It's a cool place and it'd be fun to sit down with somebody that's been through it all. My war goes through me. There's not hardly a day I don't think about things. And I can't find anybody that's really been in the thick of it. And you know what we used to, didn't we do that? We'd come back off operations and be sitting around for entertainment. What are you going to talk about? You know, hunters, they talk about that big one that got away. And
yeah.
Well, we talk about, man, I blew shit out.
You know,
my son graduated from the University of Montana.
Oh, he did.
Yes, he did.
You know, you guys talk about, you guys are talking about.
Nice hearing you guys.
Yeah. Well, Steve, sorry, but I got to go. Maybe I can join you next time.
You guys talk about counting coup and shooting the shit. When Brandy and I were Ian out of Laos, I said, you know what, Brandy? I said, if we survive this shit, to take all the shit we can talk.
Hey, up there in Great Falls.
Yeah.
I get up that way every now and then. Our forward observer lives down in Monarch, south of there. I'd like to get in touch with you next time we come up that way.
Well, Steve, he has a plan, I do believe, how he can, but,
Mike,
you can get me on your cell phone.
you were talking about Great Falls.
Yeah.
Falls and Monarch. Here's 2 other people.
Who's talking?
Talking about.
Okay.
Monarch.
Well, anyway, you all come, you know. If I don't have enough beds, I'll get you a motel.
I'll tell you what, when we get ready to come up to Montana next time,
yeah.
I'll get in touch with Steve Sherman and he can give me your address and everything and we'll get in touch with you.
Steve, is it all right to tell them how they can get on the smartphone with me?
That'll work.
Well, all you gotta do on your smartphone is
Hey, Steve, while we're all in touch, Steve, can you give us your address and your phone number so we can get back to you.
It's on
And
my
your
email to you.
And your email.
On the email that I invited you here. It's my address is on it. Your address is on, your email is on it. My address, my email, and all my website is on that letter.
Yeah.
While I'm at it, I'll mention the fact that you might remember the individual magazine.
Yeah.
Monthly magazine.
Oh, yeah.
Who reprinted the set. And you really got to think about it. If you haven't got the set, you got to think about getting them. All right. Look, was there anybody here who was on Hill 52 after Langvey, before Mylock? The team went to a place called Hill 52, which I believe was right outside Tom Nook. Anybody that's here go there? No. Okay. All right. How about the rest of you guys here? Alan, and Bruce, Mike, tell us a bit about, and Gary, but he's gone off. Richard,
I know.
tell us a bit about
guys,
Mylock.
I know two guys that were at Hill 52 from Long Bay. One's Richard Allen, and the other's Joel Johnson and Frank Toombs.
Well,
they pulled them out of what was left of the detachment at Long Bay and sent them up to Hill 52.
Now, Hill 52 seems to be just, like about a mile away from the camp at Thonduck. It's more like an OP rather than a new camp. That's why I wanted to find out what they were doing there. But that's another story. Well, we got people here from Mylock. Let's hear something about Mylock. Alan?
I'm sorry, folks, I gotta go. I'm a 24/7 caregiver, and it's been a pleasure here, and maybe in touch later on.
Okay, David. Mylock, Alan?
Sure, I'll go ahead and start, but I'm going to turn it over to Richard Suter. I see you just got on, Richard. Good to see you again. Why don't you, since you were there before me, at least about a month, why don't you talk about, see, we both served with Fast Frenchy Corvo, Master Sergeant Corvo, right? He was Tube Sergeant most of the time we were there. And why don't you bring us up to date? I'll come in after you if you like. I think Louis is still on, and Mike, you're still there. We can all talk about Mylock, but go ahead, Richard, and kick it off.
I don't know what to say. I shared a bunker with Tom, and I thought the world of him. He was, well, as we all thought, he was one of the best team sergeants around. But I don't know what else to say. I spent most of my time down in a bunker, radio bunker.
So we've got a little project going on. We from the Mylock group, most of 1969 spills over a little bit into the start of the camp and then the end of the camp. But those of us who are still kicking, as you know, Mylock was moved out on the plain there, further east of Khe Sanh, a little bit south, and nearest little town would have been Dong Ha. And been back in that AO in 2002, 2014 to check it out, and found some people who remember us from way back then, but they remember what I was a medic, and I came in and worked with Boxy Golden, Sergeant First Class Golden. Some of you may remember him. Passed away, 5-6 years ago, Richard?
Yeah. I think it's longer than that, I think.
Okay, time flies. And then for me, it was a brief stint in Mike Force for 2 or 3 months in the middle of that tour, and then finished up as senior medic when I came back. But we, and Louis, you were there, we established one hell of a MedCap program with what was then a Big Brew refugee camp, and then the surrounding Vietnamese villages too. But I don't think anybody's online right now who was here the the last time Mylock was under siege and held for a very brief period of time in March of 1970. And then I think camp was closed in August. We got word, I think, in the middle of the summer of 1969 that SF was going to be pulling out of Vietnam, pulling out the A camps and turning them over mostly to Vietnamese Rangers. But I want to talk a little bit about the medical civic action work that we did there, because when I was able to come in and work with Boxy Golden, we had 2 medics in camp, which allowed us to take turns going on patrol for one thing, but it allowed us to begin start a medical civic action program. And as I go back to our old AO up there in Northern Quang Tri Province, that's what some people remember us for. And so there's a lot of pride that the companies that work. Lou, you were on some of those med caps that we did, so you know what that was about. That's about all I wanted to say. Kind of bring that side of the SF experience there in Northern Quang Tri Province out, and say what a honor it is to be back in touch with so many of you, to hear these stories of the incredible work that went on in that god awful piece of the world. Thank you. I'll move it on right now to Mike or Louis. Why don't you say something?
You hear me now? Can you hear me at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can.
I was in Mylock from the tail end of January 70 through the time it was overrun. April 10th when they got hit in 70, and I got medevaced in the 13th of April. Gail Stouffer was team sergeant, and he got killed. We had quite a time. We were rebuilding the camp at the time. I had 3 crews of the Brew Mountain Yard women doing most of the sandbag work. We rebuilt a whole bunch of the stuff in there, put about almost right at 100 claymores around out. And when they hit us on the 10th of April, not a one of the claymores were fired. Not one of them. The wire was cut from the inside out. I was a team engineer, and I was on a less than 30-day stand down. And I convinced Stouffer I got so sick and tired of running around through the mud hole there a little bit. We had a operation Quang Tri River, and convinced Stouffer to let me go out on that little hilltop. It was a radio relay site, and put up some claymores and some trip flares and stuff. And I watched the overrun of the camp through a pair of binoculars about 6 clicks out, from 2:30 in the morning till about 5:30, 6 o'clock, as soon as they can get a helicopter in there. And they had me come in because I was a demo man, and I went in and cleaned up all the duds and stuff. I picked up over 350 pounds of Russian TNT, had Russian markings all over it. They had them in the bamboo Bangalores, and the initiating device was no good. And that stuff laying all over the camp. But we lost a pretty good crowd. I've read a couple of different write-ups. We had an engineer outfit coming in there that was rebuilding their airstrip, working the airstrip. They also did a real good bunker, and they were about finished up with it. If they'd stayed in that bunker, they'd been all right. They were sash and charging the bunker. We had over an inch and a half of blood in the main bunker, cock. But the engineers were down in the bunker that they built, and they got goosey, and they started coming out one by one, and they just VC and NVA just sit there waiting on them at the door, and I think they killed about 12 or 14 of them at that particular time. That was on the night of early morning of the 10th, I believe it was 10th of April. Yeah, we had aircraft stacked up along, they wouldn't drop anything unless they got American Voice on the phone. And we finally got them on there. We had spooks. We had all kinds of aircraft up there with all kinds of bombs, but they wasn't dropping much until an American speaking on there.
Hey, anybody got, Bruce, hate to interrupt, what, do you have any accurate info or Louis or anybody here of what an estimated or a close guess of what our infiltration rate of among our own troops? What about what percentage did we have of insiders in our midst there?
We had at least between 6 and a dozen we had identified on a payroll.
Okay.
And we kept an eye on them, as far as that goes. But as I was out there on the river relay site, and lo and behold, my wire cutters started disappearing. Okay, and that was a heads up. But the wire was cut from inside out, and they come in from the north, I believe it was northeast, and in that area they had 2 avenues they come in, because I come out two days later and tried to they booby trapped them going back out, and when I went out and started cleaning up the perimeter, the second day out, I tripped one up, and that was end of my time. I was living months and change before I was going home anyhow. But they lost, I think, I believe there was about 9 or 10 killed on that. They put CIDG and some Vietnamese SF on there trying to clean up the perimeter. That didn't work out very well. They lost a bunch of guys on that one.
Yeah, Bruce, we're a bunch of us who were working in there most of 69 are trying to get a handle on a couple of our nurses who worked there and some other people. And you might remember Chai, the brew interpreter. Last I heard about him, when I was last in Vietnam, he was alive and well in Ban Mi Thuot with his family. But you remember we called her TD Co, and her name is Lei T Se. TD Co. Do you remember the nurses from our team there?
No, I remember seeing him a couple times, but that was all. But I remember Chai. I've got a picture of him sitting in my book.
Yeah, well, he's apparently, he's quite young. When we were there, he's alive and well in Ban Mi Thuot, last I heard.
Good. Yeah, I wasn't there that about 3 months.
Okay, we're trying to track down TD Co, the nurse we called TD Co, and we think she might be there in Westminster in the LA area. So yeah, okay, thanks.
Yeah, we had some interesting stuff there, but yeah, Gail Stouffer went down.
Hey, how old are you guys? How old were you guys when you were over there first time?
Say again?
22.
Yeah, I was 22. I went to Dong Tre in Chucor as radio operator.
The 24th birthday.
I got my CIB on my 23rd birthday.
I was 21, turned 22 when I was there.
See, who else you going to get to do that shit? This is some high school dropouts and send them over.
Let me ask this question. Any of you guys put out any trail monitors, the little machines that would monitor traffic on the trails?
Yeah, those are PSIDs. PSIDs, Patrol Seismic Interdiction something or other.
Yeah, it sure was. Intel sergeant called me. He had a local patrol going out there, and he called back in. He says, Coleman, he says, I think we got some mines out here. He says, I don't know if it looked like the anti-tank mines and all and everything else. And so I said, okay. So I loaded up and they sent a chopper in for me and picked it up and hauled me out a satchel charge full of C4 and looked in there and sure enough, here was about a 3-foot antenna sitting up in there in the tall grass and all that other stuff. So I was, you know, I said, I'm not going to mess around with it. You no telling what's underneath that sucker. So I dropped a pound on top of it and somebody's ears still ringing.
Yeah.
I don't know who it belonged
Technology.
to, but yeah, somebody
Love
was
that
doing it.
technology.
I have you at my lock in 1970 with a T with song.
Tail end of January 1970 to
Gary
April
Leonard?
70.
Gary Leonard?
Yes. Oh, I'm kind of a late bloomer at my lock. I got there in late July, early August of 70 as an engineer. I'm an engineer and just basically helped to take it down. Didn't do too much fancy. I don't remember much of all what was going on. We'd get some sporadic. Say what?
At the FOB or at
my lock?
The A team.
Yeah,
yeah,
the A team, my lock, and
A101.
A101, absolutely. And
was your demo bunker at that time?
Say what?
How was your demo bunker about that time?
It's pretty good.
I had
finally
more
got
stuff.
things put together.
Yeah, man, that was more junk stuck back in there from years past, and I had trembler switches and all kinds of stuff in there that didn't have no business being in there. And they satchel charged the front door on it when they come in the 10th, but 10th of April, but they nothing went off, you know. And when I went in there to try to straighten things up, man, there was WP laying all over the floor and everything else. And I said, nah, this is not cool, you know.
Yeah, there was some sweating TNT in there too, because I had to clean that thing out and blow that stuff up. Took it down, put it in the pit, and that was an exciting time. Got to blow up all the food gas too that we had left over, and that made a nice big, pretty orange flame. But you know, other than that, man, we were getting. I'll say use the term probe. We'd be sitting there and they'd be shooting in at the deal just to get us to throw some flares up in the air so they could hit the brew camp to the west. So other than that, I can't offer as much as you guys. This has been very enlightening to hear the history. I knew that A101 had some good history behind it, but just really good to hear this. Like I just got in at the tail end and honored to be part of A101 and had a lot of fun. Unfortunately, blowing stuff up, which I like, but
Did you ever have any issues with fire support base Russell? We got in we had a company size search and destroy north and east of the camp. We went out there and back up on the side of the hill up there a little farther was out of RAO, but we could see patrols up there from different places, and they were looking in on RAO and they didn't cover it, and they bracketed us with 155s. And you never in your life saw so many people putting antennas in the air from all over the place and calling in about 4 or 5 different languages to cease fire. And yeah, friendly fire stuff we could hear it breaking brush before it hit the ground and exploded. That was not cool.
And no, we didn't have too much of a problem with that because things were starting to get quiet at that point for us. I mean, it wasn't too much.
Hey, my notes say this camp when it was closed, that what was left in terms of CIDG went off to Hatan. Were you there at that point? Gary?
Oh,
I was
when the camp was closed. My understanding is CIDG at the camp went off the hot time and the camp was closed down. Were you there when it closed?
Yeah, I was loaded up the trucks and rode them down.
Mike,
I'm not sure what happened.
Mike Messino?
Yeah,
I haven't heard much from you yet.
I'm sorry.
I haven't heard much from you yet.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
You were also at my lock. I can hear you fine.
Yeah, I was at my lock. I got there in May of '69 and I was wounded in August of '69.
Okay.
We went out to do a damage because our FO had called in an artillery strike on some movement at night, and it took us 5 days to talk to Vietnamese and to send a patrol out there to assess damage. They didn't want to go out there where it was. It had a lot of earthen bunkers and penetrate so far, but then after a certain point, they'd be bringing in weapons and stuff, but they didn't want to stay out there. And they, because the NVA would let them in, but they knew if they went too far, the fighting was going to start. And as it was that day, we made contact morning, a small group. And then in the afternoon is when we were going up a hill, across the creek, going up a hill. And we ran into a company of NVA that was dug in on top of the hill. They were waiting for us. And I happened to get wounded when I located where they were launching rockets from. And I was on my way over there to ask them to please quit when I got hit. So, and of course, Al, our medic, well, the person I was with was Bill Winley. He was a sergeant first class. He was a weapons man. He was with me, and he made the Vietnamese CIDG come back up the hill and get me because they'd already withdrawn down the hill. And when I got hit, I didn't even know if anybody knew where I was because I cut off by myself. I figured I had to do something about the rockets. And then Bill made him come up the hill to get me. And then he called back to the camp, let him know American down. And then Alan, he came out, he was the medic. He came out with a stretcher. He said he doesn't know why. Because when Bill got to me, I told him I couldn't feel my legs. So I think he passed that along to Alan, and Alan brought us to the field. And he treated me there, and then he loaded on a helicopter. They flew me to Quang Tree Hospital. And from there, they put me on another helicopter and took me out to the USS Repose, where I spent and as it turned out, I came down with malaria the same time. I got
how many
a little double whammy there. Pardon?
How many of you gentlemen served with SOG?
I did.
Not me.
Chips and Gary service on. And Chips, in fact, was on Cuomo's rescue mission to Lang Bay. Chips, you want to talk about that a little bit?
I was. Who was on that rescue mission?
Chip
Me.
Fleming.
Chips Fleming, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. I'm in contact with three of those guys. Advanced age guy. I mean, I can't remember the names right off the bat.
Yeah, Tim Kirk.
And
Yeah.
Maloney.
Yeah.
And let's see.
I led the HF that came in with George Cuomo and the SGs from FOB 3. I was the
HF leader for the FOB-1 Nung Hatchet Force.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it was quite a
we
day.
were TDY up at FOB-3 from about 21 December 67 through April of 68, I believe.
So, yeah, shit, there was.
According to Wikipedia, 68 is an American noise punk duo from Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh,
Formed in
shut up.
2013 by guitarist and vocalist Josh Scogin.
This goddamn artificial
So
intelligence.
I was one of the people from SOG, if that answers your question.
Comprises Scogin and drummer Nico
Well,
Yamaha.
at the beginning of August, Delta Project came in and started running ops in our AO there. In fact, it was when I got wounded, Al went across, they had set up their camp across the runway from where the camp was.
I was there.
Huh?
I was there.
Okay. Yeah, they set up the camp over there, and for the first few nights before I went on patrol, I'd go over there and shoot the breeze with them. Well, Al, when he got word that there was an American down, he grabbed his medic bag and went over there and jumped on one of their helicopters, and it flew him out there, and that's he treated me. And like I said, they put me on a helicopter to Wang Tree, and then USS Repose.
Hey, what was B-52's function?
I'm sorry?
Anybody know?
Again,
what was B-52's function? What were they?
area reconnaissance. That's Project Delta. They would run recon in a fixed area, a fixed zone all over the country. They'd be sent tasked to do things. Did it in I Corps times. The original mission that had was Leaping Lean, which was to go into Laos before SOG was given that mission. But there was a total screw up because they wouldn't let any of the Americans go across the border, and the Vietnamese just went and sat in the woods. So it was just a total wipe up. And that's why SOG got the cross-border mission instead of Delta.
Yeah.
You didn't finish telling us about the Cuomo operation.
You talking to me?
Yes.
Yeah.
You didn't finish telling us about the Cuomo operation.
Yeah, the situation in the bunker prior to going in was rather amusing because everybody in the bunker were talking to themselves because of the cooperation or the uncooperation from the Marine Corps. Cuomo kept trying to get the choppers, and at every turn he was turned down. So finally, when we got the word that it was time to go, it was a little bit of a surprise. None of us really expected it to happen. And when it did happen, we weren't sure what we were getting into, because all we could hear was all of the fire down there in the village. And we heard all kinds of stories about what was going on. And then they started throwing in the rumors about tanks in the wire and countering. So we didn't know what to expect when we went there. But when we went there, it was actually kind of uneventful. We got there, we landed. There wasn't much incoming fire. We picked up as many of the survivors as we could. We missed. Anyway, we got back.
You missed me.
The biggest problem we had while we were there was the Laotian battalion, or people coming out of the area Elephant. They tried to get on the choppers with us, and we had to fire over their heads to keep them from pulling the birds out of the flight path.
Let me interject something here. I was on the LZ way late. You guys are just pulling out when I got there, and the reason I didn't make that last ship was the Laotians. About 4 of them had a hold of me, like drowning men, and I couldn't move. I was handing out contact shots with that 45. Still, it was raining human beings. They were landing on us, you know, boom, right next to us. And I remember thinking, I said, you know, the human body don't bounce. It just spreads out like a beanbag. And there were bodies everywhere. And what impressed me the most were there were shoes. The area was covered with shoes. I guess that's the first thing you lose when, you know. But
Well, there was around 400 of them, I think. And they were like ants trying to climb on the chopters. And
yeah, they were hanging off the landing gear, antennas.
That's right.
Whatever.
So
And the ships would go around in a circle.
We all got out in one piece. So from my standpoint, I had a very, very small part. There was really no action that much. We got on the ground.
Well, you guys
gathered up everybody we could, and we got them back to the.
You guys got in there at just the right time. You guys got in there just the right time, because when you guys pulled out, they broke down all the ambulances on Highway 9 and sent them over there to secure that LZ. And those are the guys that got me.
Now, there's another book that nobody mentioned earlier in the day when they were talking about books, and it's called The Route 9 Problem.
Yeah, I did part of the research on that. The guy's name.
Yeah, it has some real good information about the whole battle.
Yeah, I worked with him on that. Can't remember.
In addition to the Night of the Silver Stars.
That was a little dry for me. There was, when I read that stuff, when I came back, when I got out of the Army in 80, I started researching it. And all the shit that was written there by people who were not there. And they're always talking about the same 4 or 5 people. Well, there were 24 Americans there. There were 24 different realities. And I made it my mission to shed some light on
finish that book, Dennis. You better finish that book.
I got it made now, Brandy.
That's right.
I can say anything I want now.
The tail end of 69, when Delta was there at Mylock, we were supporting the 3rd Marine Division. And we had 101st helicopters were in there working with us too. But we went about 30 days and didn't find diddly squat, didn't find nothing. We went all over the place. And then we put a team up on the side of the mountain, up on some cliffs. And about the 3rd night in, a guy called into the recon tent and says, Doc Simpson, who was NCOIC, he says, Doc, he says, I'm counting headlights. And give us some coordinates. And we checked them out on the map, and Doc says, that's impossibility. That they're not going to be driving in that terrain. You better check it out. Well, he checked it out. And about 3 nights later, he says, Doc, he called back again to get 10, 11 o'clock at night. He says, I'm counting taillights. Well, they was using the river they were talking about earlier here on this broadcast, if you please. And so he told he did a VR in there with a little fixed wing, and he come out looking like a piece of shredded cheese, and told the 3rd Marine Division about it and where it was going. And they were within 30 days going back to Oki on a sand down, and they refused to exploit the target. And they were starting to lose company size elements in broad daylight. That was towards the tail end of 69 in that area.
Makes you wonder what your mission was, you know? You go in and find things and they say, well, you guys are so full of shit, you know? Hey, man.
They didn't want to exploit the target.
Hold the mic out there. Hold the microphone out there. Say, can you hear him? Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, laugh and play with the Green Beret.
Yeah. You said you came back on a repose. I think one gentleman said that. I ended up on the sanctuary. Good bunch of folks. Very interesting. I'm gonna have to leave out of here
Yes.
shortly. So,
Yeah, I got to go to Home Depot. If I don't show up there, they got to shut down.
Alan Horton, I'd appreciate it if I could get on your mailing list.
Absolutely. Yeah, just you got something to write on right now? We'll do it.
I got it.
All the
Hey,
emails of everybody who's on here are on
Yeah.
the email that I sent out to tell you.
Okay, great. Good.
Okay.
So you can always get in touch with each other. All right?
Yeah.
As well as other people who didn't
I don't have
show up.
email
There are
on
51 who
computer letter, but you can get me on your smartphone
know
24/7 by just
where I
saying
am. John.
Vietnam Voices, Robbie
Other
Robinson.
people do too.
I'll pop right up there. It's
Hey,
an
Steve.
52-minute interview.
Hey, Steve.
Right,
Steve.
Dennis?
Yeah. Thanks for setting all this up, man. I got to go and, let the force be with you.
Okay.
All right, you were talking a little earlier about the concept of bait. And a friend of mine who's also SF at Camden wrote this book, used the term bait, which Camden in Mother's Day of 1968 definitely was. And he had a lot of criticism as he was talking about this book that he was writing for many years from very senior people. Because they didn't like the idea that any Americans would have treated American soldiers as potential bait. And recently, before he published this book, I found a footnote in the MACV command history where they talked about fire support bases. And they fully acknowledged the fire support bases were thought of as bait. So if you had a problem with the term before, that's the official word for MACV. Fire support bases and special forces camps were bait, just for the purpose that Church said, catch them in the open and bomb the shit out of them. One other footnote on Lang Vei on the night it was attacked. That was just before the Tet Offensive. So everybody was around at that time all through the country. I was in the sea detachment in Pleiku. But I don't think things were much different in other camps, certainly not in Khartoum, B-24 at the Mike Force across the street from us, at all the camps going up in Khartoum province. We were all listening to the radio at night. So it wasn't just a radio operator sitting in that radio room. Yeah, those radio rooms were packed and we're all listening. Mike forces are saying, we're ready to go, send us. Everybody's saying this. Of course, there was nothing there that they could do because the assets weren't there to move. But people were listening to what was going on at Lang Vei all that night. Look, I'm very pleased to have all these people showing up. I had hoped there'd be a few more than that, but this was a good representative selection of people. And the stories are interesting. I will end the recording and I will edit it and put it up on a website shortly. It's not going to be that fast because I've got some things behind that to get done. But I like this format. You guys all have access to my email that I sent out. All you need to do is forward it to everybody and you can get together again and do whatever you want. I've got to move on because I've got to do all the camps in 3 Corps and all the camps in 4 Corps before I finish this pass I'm doing. So I'm glad you all came. I'm happy to have you here and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. And thank you for the organization of getting us all together. You know, nobody else has ever done this.
Yeah, I have to give
Well,
Steve, thanks for, it takes a lot of work to, and attention to detail to put something like this together. And for him to take the time to do this, mighty kind of him, and we appreciate it.
Well, one thing you have to remember, this is the positive effects of making lemonade out of the COVID-19 virus. We all learned how to use Zoom as a result of this shit. And then when I had to go back and update my notes on the website, it seemed appropriate. I might as well just have a Zoom meeting for each grant camp I did. I started out in 2-Corps and had Zoom meetings for people at old bead attachment. That got too cumbersome. So in I-Corps, I've done it by 8 attachment. And even this one here, this probably should have been done as 2 or 3 separate sub-elements for A101 because of such an interesting and intricate history we've had. So it's going to probably take another year or the full year of this year for me to get through all the camps. But I don't see any problem with you guys putting your own meeting together. And I don't see any problem of coming back again and doing it again some other time.
Thanks for putting it together.
Oh, thanks very much, Steve. I
Say,
appreciate
Richard, you were concerned about driving down the highway.
Nice
See, it worked out.
meeting you guys.
I am.
I'll say goodbye. Signing out.
Thank you, Steve. I've got to take off. I've got things to do here, so I'm checking out. Thank you very much again.
All right.
Yep. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, I appreciate you all coming along here. You know, it would be a very boring thing. It was just me and the camera. All right.
Okay.
I'm gonna
We'll see you, Steve. God bless.
end the recording.